Tonight's gospel reading comes out of the 14th chapter of John, verses 23 to 29. And it has a straightforward message, and one that I want to honor by being direct, not by being verbose. And in today's gospel reading, it offers a suggestion, not a command, but a suggestion. And the suggestion this gospel is going to offer, we're going to take a look at it in a moment, it is really very timely. Because in our world today, and maybe you're one of these people, a lot of people have high anxiety, deep depression, serious problems, recurring nightmares. And a lot of people are worried on the path the world is taking. As it seems like moral value has collapsed. The war in Ukraine, you have to wonder, will it expand to something that none of us want to see? The prices of gas and food, how high will they continue to climb? If they go much higher, how will you be able to afford either one? So let's take a look at verse 23, 27, and 28 of today's gospel reading. Now, it says in these three verses, Jesus said to his disciples, again, this is chapter 14, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give it to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid. You've heard me tell you I'm going away and I'll come back to you." Now, when you look at those three verses, just see if you can notice for a moment the line that has the suggestion. Do you notice where Jesus offers a suggestion, not a command, but a suggestion? Does anyone see the suggestion that is offered? Does anyone see it? That's exactly right. There it is. The line that says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid," that is the suggestion. Everything outside of that, that's action, that's information, but the key point of suggestion, not command, is do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid. So if anyone came into church tonight with a troubled heart, you're afraid, you just are anxious about something, and you say to yourself, "Well, Jesus, that's a great suggestion. But how do I live that suggestion? How do I get rid of my anxiety? How do I get rid of my depression? How do I get rid of these serious problems? How do I get rid of my reoccurring nightmares? How can I not be afraid with what I see going on in the world, and maybe even more importantly, and more specifically, my family?" Well, it turns out to be, and this is what I really want to share with you tonight, and maybe I found the key component to living that. Do not be afraid or troubled. A couple of weeks ago, I went down to St. Margaret's Hospital to make my hospital runs. I had a list of the people I needed to visit, and when I got to the front desk, one of the volunteers at the front desk, I give to the person, tell the person the names of the people I have to visit, and then they share with me the room numbers. So I'm writing down the room number where I have to go. So after they give me the room number, I then depart and I get up to the second floor because the first two people I have to visit on the second floor. When I get there, I'm looking at the room numbers, and I look at this one room I got to visit, and then I realize how bad my handwriting is. Because now I can't tell, is that 237 or is that 239? Is that 7 and 7 or is it 7 and 9? I'm not too sure. You know, it's one thing if you can't read someone else's handwriting. You can't read your handwriting. You're in big trouble. So anyway, I can't figure it out, but I thought, okay, well, at least I have a 50-50 shot. I'll try 237 first because this is the first door on my way down the hallway. That'd be the first room. 39 would be beyond it on the same side. When I walk into the room, I knew the person I had to visit because I knew the name that I'd written there, just that the room number was the one called in question. And then when I walked in, I noticed that I was in the wrong room. Clearly, that was to be 239. So I said to the gal who's in bed, I'm sorry, I have the wrong room. And she said to me, "Are you a priest?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, Father, can you stay a while? Can you give me communion? You have communion?" I have, "Yes, I have it in my little bag," and asked me if I would anoint her. I said, "Yes." Now, what I noticed unusual about this gal is that she was in bed. That part's not unusual, but her fists were clenched. She was tightly fisted. And her fists were in a cross right over her chest. And her hands were tight, really, really tight. So we're having this conversation, and she just really wanted to talk. And before I gave her communion, anointed her, we're just talking, and she was sharing with me her life. And with those tightly clenched fists, she said to me, "Father, I have cancer." And so I said to her, "Well, are you afraid?" Now, I would suspect that the answer to that question would be yes. Because I would think, it's not true for me, but it's been true for family members. When a person has cancer, you're diagnosed with cancer, I would think you'd be afraid. So she did not say yes. She said, no, I am not afraid. And her hands are clenched. And then we're having our conversation. She just wanted to spew it all out. And then I realized, well, God, now I know what's going on, because I believe not in coincidence sometimes, but rather in faith moments. So clearly, when I wrote down 2:30, what I thought was a 9 or a 7, maybe God had me do that on purpose. I went into the wrong room by accident. Turned out to be I was in the right room on purpose, by God's desire for me to be in there. And after she said no, she was not afraid of the cancer. And then we're having this conversation. She said to me, Father, I'm doing good right now. Today's a good day. But the cancer's all through my body. She said, about an hour ago before you got here, the doctors were in to see me, and they gave me 3 weeks to a month to live. Now think about that. That's incredible. And any one of us can die at any moment. Maybe one of us will expire before today's over, but I don't know that. So that's something I don't know, something you don't know. But to have a doctor, a series of doctors, she said a couple of doctors, we're in there about an hour before I got there. They told her she got 3 weeks to a month to live. Now, I think that would change absolutely everything. So I said to her, well, let me ask you a question. Are you afraid to die? And she repeated the same answer. She repeated the question I asked earlier. And she said, no. No, I'm not afraid to die. And I had to find out, well, why? You're not afraid of the cancer. You're not afraid to die. You're going to die in 3 weeks to a month. I mean, just to have any doctor tell me that, I would just, I think, literally melt to the floor like butter heated. I said, how could you not be afraid? And then she did something really interesting. She had these hands that were clenched, and she pulled them away, and she opened them up, and in each one was a crucifix. And she said to me, Father, I've realized just in the last couple of weeks of dealing with this issue that life is not in my control. That my life in the next 3 weeks to a month is in God's hands. So I believe if my life is in God's hands, I should put God's life in my hands. And that's why she was holding on tight. And she said, I have no idea what the end's going to be like. How painful will that be? I don't know. She said, but you know this much. I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out in about 3 weeks, a month. But it's all God's desire. It's all God's plan. And since I can't do anything about it, my life is in His hands. And knowing my life is in His hands, I'm not afraid of the cancer. I'm not afraid to die because I have God with me. And I thought that was really, really courageous. And then I anointed her and gave her communion, and we continue to have a conversation. And I went to leave, and just as I'm exiting the door, she called me back, come back. So I walked back in, and she said, I have something I want to give you. Again, her hands went back to being clenched after I anointed her. And part of anointing a person, you put the anointing oil on the forehead and the palm of her hands. And after I did that, she got her crucifixes and went back like this. And I was just walking out the door, and she called me back. She said, something I want to give you. And then she handed me one of those crucifixes, and it's this crucifix right here. Now, you might not be able to see it because from where you're sitting, you might be way in the back, but you know what a crucifix looks like, and that's the crucifix, one of the two that she gave me. And she said to me, I got this crucifix because it broke off of one of my rosaries, and so did the other one. That's how she got the two of them. So this is off of one of her rosaries. And she said to me, keep this, and whenever you get nervous or concerned, it's almost like that stone a lot of people keep in there, that worry stone a lot of people have in their pocket. You just rub it when you're worried about something. But it seemed to me, as what she was saying, what would be much more effective than a worry stone would be the crucifix. And she said to me, Father, hold on to that crucifix. And if you're going through something that's troublesome or you have reason to be afraid, just grab onto that crucifix. She said, because what I realize now is my life is in God's hands, and if my life is in God's hands, I'm going to make sure that God's life is in my hands. Now, that's really what that says. It's off the wall now, but that's an important part. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid, and we say, God, how can that be? That's what I want to do, because every one of us are filled sometimes, maybe not right now, but at certain moments of a day or in a week or a month or a year, we're filled with anxiety and worry and problems. And some of our greatest problems aren't necessarily a problem that you have, but a problem that a family member has. You're worried about a son or a daughter, a brother or sister, or mother or father. You know, when it's someone else's problem, you cannot control their problem as much as you can control yours. You like to control their problems, but it's just out of your hands. And so how do you deal with that? By simply saying, God, none of this world, my life, their life, none of this, I'm in control of nothing. It's all yours. So I'm simply going to do the most courageous thing I can. I'm just going to trust you. I'm just going to give it to you. And so since I'm going to die, or if I have cancer, as she said, and my days are limited, am I going to worry about it? No. I'm just going to hold on to the crucifix and take what comes, because I know God will direct me in a soft, comfortable way. And so I took the crucifix, and it's been in my pocket. And as I changed my pants to other pants, my play pants and other pants, you're always changing your pants to other pants. And I've been just carrying this. I think she's right. But the line she left me with is one I want to leave you with. And her line was this: if my life is in God's hands, I want to make sure that God's life is in my hands.